how to hook a set sexually. There's this whole model of like, there's like the social hook point and the sexual hook point. The idea being social hook point roughly is where she's willing to engage in a conversation with you. Sexual hook point is, I guess, where she's willing to have sex with you. Generally, people, when they say sexual hook point, what they really mean is that she's hooked in an interaction that has some level of man-to-woman nature to it, or you've shown some interest or some intent, whatever word you want to use for that. The idea is that there's like this deeper level of hooking. And I agree with that part. I definitely agree there. There is, I consider like hooked enough to talk to you, hooked enough to try to talk to you, hooked enough to do work, hooked enough to leave her friends, hooked enough to, you know, maybe get physical with you, kiss you, that kind of stuff. So that all definitely exists. But this idea that there's this like one set point that's like, this is the social hook point, the sexual hook point, it's really a gradient. It's really this gradient of like the girl is getting more and more into you and more A, invested, and B, willing to invest over time. And then this idea that there's a distinction between a social hook and a sexual hook, it's really a level of investment. That's really what it is. However, when you want to talk about, if you want to call it really a social hook, a sexual hook point, you want to have done some sexual stuff yourself or implied some sexual stuff yourself. So if you have had an entire conversation for 6 hours about the weather, which God knows she won't stay long enough for that to even happen, but if you somehow did that, you would not have crossed any more than the social hook point because you haven't given any opportunity for it to get sexual. You haven't given any opportunity for her to see you as a sexual being. So in order for sex to happen, or in order for her to view sex as happening, you need to broach that topic. You need to address that topic, which means you need to take a risk. Right? And so this idea of the sexual hook, this idea of hooked in a way that is a man-to-woman way, it really has two things. One is depth of hook, and two is hook with a guy who's shown that he is the type of guy who has sex. Right? And so those are the two major criteria. So that deals with the type of hook. Now the other question is, how do you hook in general? How do you hook at all? Right? How do you get someone to buy in? How do you get someone to participate? How do you get someone to invest in a conversation? And basically there are a couple components. First component is space. You cannot chase something that is chasing you. So if as a guy you're showing interest, and you're pushing, or you're trying to get closer and trying to physically escalate, at no point can the girl actually chase you. It's not possible because there's no space for her to chase. So you have to give space. And what this means is, say you, maybe you tease the girl, instead of teasing and just continue to talk, tease, and then chill back and let her respond, react, talk back, right, at some point. And if she doesn't, you gave that little pause, and then you can continue. But instead of just tease and then and she can't even get a word in edgewise, tease, give her a look, challenge her, let her participate, make her want to qualify herself, make her want to justify herself. Or another great way is we call the open loop. The open loop is basically you imply there's something, and then you say maybe you want to like, oh, you know, this is interesting. Actually, you know what? I don't know you that well. So often there's gonna be like, no. What do you mean you don't know me that well? Tell me, right? That's hooking, right? That's when the girl is trying to participate. The girl is trying to invest, trying to get deeper in the conversation, trying to get to know you better, etc. Good indication, by the way, for any hook is she's asking you questions. Asking you questions or asking you for something is a good hook. So that's the first thing, is you need to give space for her to chase. The second thing is you need to challenge her or threaten her frame enough that she would want to chase. Right, so if you just give space, but you're just like very, very nice the whole time, you're like compliment, very boring platonic conversation, compliment, platonic, and then you can pause all you want. She's not going to fill in that gap, probably, maybe at all, but if she is going to fill in that gap, it'll just be with more boring platonic conversation. She's not going to chase because you haven't given her any reason to chase. If you push the girl away, she'll want to validate herself back and chase you a bit. If it's just very neutral, you're going to end up in a very neutral conversation. Okay, so sort of to recap, it's a little over the place because this question, quite frankly, how to hook a girl sexually, is a little bit like the question, how do I do game, right? That's what you're really trying to do in game. So it's a very broad question, but just giving kind of Cliff Notes answers to a very broad question. One, understand there is depth of hook, and that's going to come over time, and that's going to come with persistently doing these hooking behaviors. Two, if you want to hook sexually, you need to have some mention or some sexual nature to the conversation. Three, if you want to get a hook, you need to give the space for her to chase. And four, if you want to get a quality hook, you need to challenge her or push her away so she feels the inclination to chase. So again, very, very broad question. I could probably talk like for hours on all the like intricacies and details and whatnot, but that gives you a kind of a Cliff Notes of what you're looking for and what the general sort of schema of hooking really comes down to.